Welcome to another deep dive with us.
Um,
Today we're going to
yeah.
be tackling AI in medical imaging analysis,
Okay.
which is a field with,
Mhm.
huge potential. I mean, think about AI spotting patterns in complex images
Right.
that even the most experienced doctor might
Yeah.
miss.
Yeah.
But
Uh-huh.
I have to admit, the idea of algorithms
Yeah.
making these big medical decisions makes me a bit uneasy.
Yeah.
I'm sure you feel it too.
It's understandable to be cautious.
Right.
I think one of the biggest challenges with AI,
Okay.
especially in a field as sensitive as healthcare,
Yeah.
is the lack of transparency.
Mm-hmm.
We often don't know why an AI makes a particular prediction, which
Yeah.
makes it hard to trust completely.
So that's
Yeah.
kind of the black box problem.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right.
But it's more than just
Yeah.
wanting to know what's going on
Yes.
inside the AI's head.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. It's about making sure the AI is making decisions based on genuine medical signals
Mhm.
and not getting sidetracked by misleading information.
Right.
This is where the problem of confounders comes in.
Confounders.
Yeah.
Okay. So confounders.
Confounders, yeah.
Can you break that down for me a little bit? It sounds a little intimidating.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty simple idea.
Okay.
Imagine a study finds that people who drink a lot of coffee
Right.
have a higher risk of heart disease.
Okay.
So on the surface, it seems like coffee is the culprit.
Right.
But what if it turns out that smokers tend to drink more coffee,
Hmm.
and it's actually the smoking
Oh,
that's causing the heart problems?
right.
In this case, smoking is the confounder.
Okay.
It's linked to both coffee drinking and heart disease,
So it makes it seem like,
making the relationship between coffee and heart disease appear stronger than it really is.
yeah, so it's like a hidden variable that's
Yeah.
messing up the results.
Precisely.
Got it.
And this is a big challenge for AI and medical imaging. The AI could be making predictions based on these hidden confounders, and we might not even realize it.
Oh, wow.
The deep dive that we're doing today
Okay.
is focused on a recent research study that tackles this challenge head on.
Okay.
They're developing new methods to control for confounders
Right.
and make AI more interpretable in medical imaging.
That sounds promising, but I'm curious. Confounders are tricky, even in traditional research.
Yeah.
How do you even begin to tackle them with AI where things are so complex?
Yeah, you're right. It's definitely more complicated with AI.
Right.
A lot of existing methods for controlling confounders just aren't designed to handle the nuances of AI models.
Mhm.
For example, many can only handle binary confounders,
Okay.
things that are either present or absent, like biological sex.
Right.
But many medical confounders are continuous,
Right.
like age or BMI,
Yeah.
or there are multiple confounders interacting with each other,
Right.
making things really messy.
So just trying to remove all the confounder information wouldn't work.
Yeah, it's not that simple.
Okay.
Some methods, like CFNet and MDN,
Okay.
attempt to do that.
Okay.
But it often comes at a cost.
Okay.
Stripping away that confounder information
Mm-hmm.
can actually degrade the quality of the images the AI produces, making them harder to interpret visually.
That seems counterproductive, especially in medical imaging, where being able to see what's going on in the image is so crucial.
Exactly.
Right.
It's a delicate balancing act.
Yeah.
You want to control for confounders,
Yeah.
but you don't want to lose important information in the process.
Yeah. So how does this new research approach the problem?
Yeah.
They're not just trying to eliminate confounders altogether, are they?
That's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, eh?
Instead of trying to remove confounder information,
Okay.
they've developed a method to identify what they call a confounder-free vector
Okay.
within the AI's latent space.
Okay. Hold on. Latent space and confounder-free vector.
Yeah.
Can you explain those terms in a way that even I can understand?
Sure. Imagine the AI's brain
Okay.
as a complex multidimensional map,
Mhm.
where each point on the map represents an image.
Okay.
This map is the latent space.
Right.
Now, the confounder-free vector is like a special path
Okay.
through this map.
Mm-hmm.
It highlights the changes in the target variable,
Yeah.
let's say disease severity,
Mm-hmm.
without being influenced by those pesky confounders.
So it's like finding a secret route
Yeah.
that bypasses all the confusing detours caused by the confounders.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Okay. But how does this actually help us understand what's going on in the images?
So this method does something really clever.
Okay.
It manages to provide both accurate predictions
Okay.
and interpretable visualizations.
Oh, wow.
Think of it this way.
Okay.
You not only get a diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
but you can actually see the evidence the AI is using,
Okay.
highlighted on the image itself.
So doctors can actually look at the image and say, okay, I see what the AI is picking up on.
Exactly.
No.
And what makes this new method even more promising
Okay.
is its flexibility.
Okay.
It can handle multiple continuous confounders,
Okay, yeah.
something that many other techniques struggle with.
Right. Yeah.
Plus, it can be applied in situations where not all the data is neatly labeled,
Mm.
which is often the case in medical research.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm definitely intrigued.
Yeah.
But how did they actually test this method?
So they did a series of 3 experiments,
Okay.
starting with a really clever visualization using simple synthetic images.
Okay. So not real medical images yet.
Yeah.
What a way to see
Yeah.
how this approach works
Exactly.
in a controlled setting.
Yeah.
What kind of images did they use?
They used simple images of circles.
Circles.
The target variable was the brightness of the circle,
Okay.
and the confounder they introduced was the radius of the circle.
Okay.
They deliberately set it up so that larger circles tended to be dimmer.
So even in this very simplified setup,
Yeah.
there's a potential for the AI to get misled,
Yeah.
thinking that the size of the circle
Yeah.
is directly related to its brightness,
That's right.
even though it's not.
Yeah. And that's exactly what happened when they didn't control for the confounder.
Okay.
The AI correctly predicted the brightness,
Yeah.
but it also inadvertently changed the size of the circle in the process,
Wow.
showing that it was picking up on that spurious correlation.
So even though it got the answer right,
Yeah.
it got it right for the wrong reason.
Exactly.
Uh,
Yeah, that's scary. And that's the danger of confounders.
Yeah.
They can lead us to believe there are relationships where none actually exist,
Right.
but when they applied their new method to control for the confounder,
Yeah. What
Uh,
happened? Did it manage to separate the size from the brightness?
it did.
Wow.
The radius of the circle remained constant while the brightness changed.
Okay.
It was a really elegant visual demonstration. Yeah.
That their technique could successfully disentangle these intertwined effects.
Okay, that's pretty convincing.
Yeah.
But I'm really interested to hear how this method performs with real medical images.
Yeah.
Did they test it on something more complex?
They did.
Oh,
In their second experiment, they tackled a very sensitive
yeah, okay.
and important topic,
Okay.
the effects of prenatal alcohol exposure.
Wow, that's a topic with a lot of nuances and potential confounders.
Yeah.
What kind of data did they use?
They used 3D facial images of children
Okay.
to see if low to moderate prenatal alcohol exposure
Okay.
was linked to specific facial features.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, controlling for confounders is incredibly important here,
Yeah.
because things like ethnicity and BMI can also have a huge impact on facial development.
Right.
Yeah.
So what did they find? Did the alcohol exposure actually affect facial features?
This is where the confounder control really makes a difference. Without
Yeah.
controlling for confounders,
The AI identified a link between alcohol exposure and certain features, like narrow nasal bridges and cheeks.
so that sounds like a pretty clear connection,
Yeah,
but I'm guessing it's not that simple.
we're right.
Okay.
When they applied their method to control for confounders like ethnicity and BMI,
Mm-hmm.
those associations vanished.
Wow.
It turned out that those particular facial features
Yeah.
were primarily driven by ethnicity and BMI,
Wow.
not the alcohol exposure.
That's a pretty significant finding.
Yeah.
It shows how easily we can jump to the wrong conclusions if we don't account for these hidden variables.
Yeah.
I'm assuming their new method helped them see what was really going on.
It did.
Okay.
They even created visualizations
Yeah.
showing how the facial features they identified
Yeah.
changed when they controlled for different confounders.
Wow.
It really provides a window
Yeah.
into the AI's decision-making process.
So it's not just about getting the right answer.
Yeah.
It's about understanding how the AI arrived at that answer
Yeah,
and what factors are truly at play.
exactly.
Makes me wonder about all those AI headlines we see in the news.
Yeah.
You know, we really need to be critical about how we interpret these results.
Absolutely. Critical thinking is more important than ever,
Yeah.
especially in the age of AI.
Right.
But we can't forget their third experiment,
Okay.
which focused on brain imaging.
Okay. Brain imaging.
Yeah.
You have my attention.
Yeah. This is where things get really fascinating.
All right. What were they looking at specifically?
They used brain MRI data
Oh.
to explore the link between gray matter density and global cognition.
Okay.
Basically, how well our brains are functioning overall.
Got it.
And as you might expect, they controlled for confounders,
Okay.
like age, sex, and education level.
I'm guessing age is a pretty major confounder in this case.
You bet.
Yeah.
Without controlling for age,
Okay.
they found a strong association
Okay.
between gray matter density and cognition.
Which isn't surprising.
Right, that makes sense.
But here's the twist.
Okay.
That association was almost entirely driven by age.
So it's like saying that the older we get,
Yeah.
the more likely our brains are to change. And that was overshadowing any real relationship
Yeah.
between gray matter and how well our brains work.
That's exactly it.
Wow.
After they corrected for age,
Mm-hmm.
the link between gray matter density and cognition
Okay.
essentially disappeared.
And this is making me rethink everything I thought I knew about brain imaging.
Yeah.
Does this mean that brain imaging isn't useful for understanding cognitive function?
That's a great question.
We did learn some new things about the brain. What does it all mean?
It's tempting to conclude that overall gray matter density
Okay.
isn't a reliable indicator of cognitive function,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not quite that simple.
I have a feeling there's more to this story.
There is. We need to remember that this study focused on overall gray matter density.
Okay.
Imagine trying to judge a book by its cover instead of actually reading the chapters.
Exactly. Future research could use this new method to zoom in on specific brain regions,
Okay.
going beyond just the overall gray matter density.
Okay.
There might be subtle but important relationships between specific brain regions
Yeah.
and cognitive abilities
Got it.
that are being masked by these broader measures.
So it's not a dead end for brain imaging,
Right.
but rather a new starting point.
Yeah.
This new technique gives researchers a more precise tool
Uh-huh.
to examine these nuances.
That's a great way to put it. And that's
Yeah.
what makes this area of research so exciting.
Okay.
It's not about replacing human expertise,
Right.
but about enhancing it,
Yeah.
providing new insights that can help us improve diagnostics and treatment.
Okay. Let's recap the key takeaways from this deep dive so far.
Okay.
First, we learned that confounders are a serious issue in AI for medical imaging.
Right.
They can lead to misleading results
Yeah.
and potentially impact patient care.
Right. And it's important to add that traditional methods for dealing with confounders don't always translate well to the complexity of AI models.
Yeah.
We need more sophisticated approaches that
Right.
are specifically designed for these challenges.
Our second takeaway. This new method for controlling confounders while maintaining interpretability
Yeah.
seems incredibly promising.
Yeah.
It's like having a clear window
Yeah.
into the AI's thought process,
Uh-huh.
which is essential for building trust
Right.
and understanding the real relationships in the data.
What I find particularly fascinating is that this method achieves this balance
Okay.
by finding a clever workaround.
Okay.
Instead of just blindly removing confounder information,
Yeah.
it seeks out that confounder-free vector in the AI's latent space,
Right.
allowing us to see the relevant features
Yeah.
without the distortion of those confounders.
Right. And finally, although the brain imaging study showed a weak link between overall gray matter density and cognition after controlling for confounders,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that brain imaging is useless.
Right.
Right.
If we zoom out and look at the bigger picture,
Mm-hmm.
this finding actually highlights the need to move beyond simplistic interpretations
Yeah.
and embrace the complexity of the brain.
It's a reminder that AI is a tool.
Yeah.
And like any tool, it needs to be used thoughtfully and critically.
And thanks to research like this,
Yeah.
we can continue to refine our tools and unlock even deeper insights into the workings of the human body.
This deep dive has been a whirlwind tour of the world of AI and medical imaging.
Yeah.
And it's clear this field is evolving rapidly.
It is.
Any parting words of wisdom for our listener before we wrap up part one?
I'd say as AI becomes more integrated into healthcare,
Okay.
it's more important than ever to stay informed
Yeah.
about its potential and its limitations. Don't be afraid to ask questions, dig into the research, and think critically about the claims being made.
That's excellent advice.
Yeah.
Who knows, maybe you'll even be inspired to contribute to this exciting field yourself.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be back with part 2 soon.
Sounds good.
You know, it's funny.
Yeah.
Before this deep dive,
Mhm.
I think I had a pretty simplistic view of brain imaging.
Yeah.
I kind of assumed that if you could see a difference in a brain scan,
Right.
it meant there was a meaningful difference in cognitive function.
Yeah.
But now I'm realizing it's much more complicated than that.
It really is, and that's what makes this new method for controlling confounders so valuable.
Right.
It allows us to move beyond those simplistic interpretations
Yeah.
and start asking more nuanced questions. Instead of just looking at overall gray matter density, we can start exploring how specific brain regions might be related to different cognitive abilities, even if those relationships aren't immediately obvious.
Right. So it's like we need to refine our tools before we can truly understand the picture they're painting. But even though the brain imaging study didn't find a direct link between gray matter and cognition after controlling for confounders,
Right.
it doesn't mean we learn nothing, right?
Absolutely not. This study is still incredibly valuable
Okay.
because it challenges our assumptions and opens up new avenues for research.
Okay.
It's a reminder that we need to be cautious about interpreting brain imaging results
Mm-hmm.
and that we need to account for confounders if we want to get a clear picture of what's really going on.
So in a way, this study is less about specific findings and more about highlighting the importance of using the right tools and asking the right questions.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's about moving beyond the hype and approaching AI in healthcare with a healthy dose of critical thinking.
Yeah, and I think that's a message that applies to any scientific field,
Yeah.
not just AI.
Right.
It's easy to get caught up in exciting new discoveries.
Right.
But it's crucial to remember that science is an ongoing process
Yeah.
of questioning, refining,
Mhm.
and sometimes even revising our understanding.
Exactly.
Right.
And this study is a perfect example of that.
Okay.
It's not about throwing out brain imaging altogether.
Right.
It's about using it more thoughtfully
Yeah.
and in conjunction with other tools
Right.
to gain a deeper understanding of the brain.
It makes me wonder what other hidden connections we might be missing in other areas of medicine simply because we haven't been controlling for confounders effectively.
That's a really insightful point.
Yeah.
This research highlights the need for a paradigm shift in how we approach medical research. Particularly when using AI, we need to be more rigorous about identifying and controlling for confounders if we want to make truly meaningful discoveries.
Yeah, I'm also curious about the practical implications of this research.
Yeah.
If this new method for controlling confounders proves to be effective,
Yeah.
how do you see it being used in real-world clinical settings?
That's a great question. I think it has the potential to revolutionize the way we use AI in healthcare. Imagine a doctor being able to see not only an AI's diagnosis, but also the specific features in an image that led to that diagnosis, all while knowing that confounders have been accounted for it. It could significantly enhance their ability to make informed decisions about patient care.
It also makes me think about the potential for personalized medicine.
Yeah.
If we can control for individual confounders more effectively, we might be able to develop more targeted treatments that are tailored to a patient's unique characteristics.
Absolutely. The ability to control for confounders opens up a whole new world of possibilities for personalized medicine.
Yeah.
We can start moving away from one-size-fits-all approaches and towards treatments that are truly individualized.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a much deeper understanding of the complexities of AI in medicine and the importance of critical thinking when interpreting research findings.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
It's crucial that we have these conversations so that we can harness the power of AI responsibly and ethically.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this part of our deep dive.
Okay.
But before we go, is there anything else you'd like to leave our listener with?
I just encourage them to stay curious and keep asking questions. The field of AI in healthcare is constantly evolving, and it's an exciting time to be following its progress.
Excellent advice. And who knows, maybe our listener will be the one making the next groundbreaking discovery. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back with part 3 soon. It's amazing to think about how much our understanding of AI in medicine has evolved in just a few short years. It feels like we're on the cusp of a major transformation in healthcare.
We are, and it's important to remember that this transformation will require not only technological advancements, but also a shift in our thinking. We need to embrace complexity, challenge our assumptions, and approach AI with both enthusiasm and a healthy dose of skepticism.
I think this deep dive has really highlighted that point. We've seen how easily we can be misled by seemingly straightforward correlations, how crucial it is to control for confounders, and how important it is to make AI interpretable so that we can understand its reasoning.
Those are key takeaways. And as AI becomes more integrated into our lives, these principles will only become more relevant whether we're talking about healthcare, finance, or any other field where AI is being applied. We need to be aware of its limitations and potential biases.
It's like learning a new language. We need to understand the grammar and syntax of AI if we're going to communicate with it effectively and make sure it's serving our needs, not the other way around.
That's a great analogy. And like learning any new language, it takes time, effort, and a willingness to make mistakes along the way.
But the rewards are potentially huge. We have the opportunity to use AI to improve healthcare outcomes, develop more personalized treatments, and even gain a deeper understanding of ourselves.
Those are goals worth striving for, and I'm confident that with continued research, collaboration, and a commitment to ethical development, we can harness the power of AI for the benefit of humanity.
This deep dive has been a fascinating journey into the world of AI and medical imaging. It's left me feeling both excited about the possibilities and mindful of the challenges, but most importantly, it's left me with a sense of hope.
Hope is essential. We need to approach the future with a sense of optimism and a belief that we can use technology to create a better world.
Well said. Thanks for joining me on this incredible deep dive. I can't wait to see what discoveries await us in the future.
The journey is just beginning, and to our listener out there, thanks for diving deep with us. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep learning.